So much for democracy, so much for transparency, and so much for fairness. The 2025 federal election wasn't just messy, it felt like a betrayal to every Canadian who still believes their vote should count. And now, the truth is finally coming to light. A major investigation has been launched. Why? Because the situation can no longer be ignored, not by the public, not by Elections Canada, and not even by the Liberal government under Mark Carney. If you've made it this far, it's clear you care about truth, accountability, and protecting our democratic system. If you're tired of political spin and want straight talk on what's really happening, subscribe and be part of a community that asks the tough questions and demands better. Let's start with the basics. The things that Elections Canada should have mastered years ago. In several writings, including Pierre Poilievre's, ballots were filled out using pencils. Yes, pencils, not ink. Some ballots lacked official stamps. Others were reportedly stored in private homes, far from any secure location. These are not just minor oversights. They raise serious concerns about how the election was handled. Reports surfaced from across the country, east to west, rural to urban, about unsecured ballot boxes, voting machines malfunctioning, and entire stacks of advance ballots found uncounted in a locked closet in suburban Ontario. This is Canada, a country known for stability and fairness. But the way this election was run has raised questions that can't be ignored. Where was Prime Minister Mark Carney during all of this? For days he remained silent. And then came Mark Carney, confident, composed, and seemingly convinced the outcome was already decided. He didn't step onto the stage as a candidate fighting for every vote. He stepped on like a man managing a media rollout, not an election. It was all about image, not answers. Let's not forget, Carney had no previous experience in elected office. He was brought into leadership from the top down, backed by elite institutions and corporate allies, not grassroots support. For many Canadians, he felt out of touch with real people and real issues. When concerned citizens you started asking questions about the election, they weren't met with transparency. Instead, there were dismissive headlines, quick denials, and accusations of misinformation. The public was told to move on, but you didn't. You kept asking. You kept digging. You demanded accountability, and because of that, a judicial inquiry is now officially underway. The investigation is focusing on multiple writings, especially those where the vote margins were razor thin and the irregularities too serious to ignore. In some cases, the number of ballots didn't match the voter rolls. In others, there were more votes counted than registered voters. That's not just a clerical error, that's a breakdown of basic election integrity. Already, the findings are troubling. Miscounts, duplicate ballots, unverified signatures, entire boxes of ballots that were never even opened before winners were declared. Let's take a closer look at Pierre Poilievre's writing. It was reported that 91 candidates were listed on a single ballot. That's not just confusing, it's a logistical nightmare. And it happened in one of the strongest conservative ridings in the country. The result? Long lines, frustrated voters, and a record number of spoiled ballots. It's hard not to question the intent behind that. But this goes far beyond one riding or one candidate. This is about whether Canadians can trust the system meant to protect our democratic rights. When Elections Canada treats these problems as minor technical glitches instead of urgent red flags, it sends a clear message. The public's concerns are not being taken seriously. What we're seeing now isn't just poor management, it's a serious breach of public trust. It's a betrayal of every Canadian who believed in the integrity of their vote. And yes, it's a betrayal of the generations who fought and sacrificed for the right to cast that vote freely and fairly. Yet, rather than confront the problem head on, it's being minimized, downplayed by the very people who benefit from the confusion. But here's where things change. Canadians aren't looking away. You're watching. Speaking up, getting organized, and demanding real answers. Mark Carney's rise to power wasn't built on public enthusiasm. It was shaped in back rooms, through favorable media coverage and bureaucratic maneuvering. But now, with the inquiry underway, that polished image is beginning to crack. The idea of Carney as the steady hand, the savior of Canadian politics, is quickly fading. He wasn't elected in the traditional sense. He was positioned. And now, the system that helped elevate him is facing serious legal scrutiny. Behind the scenes, the pressure is mounting. Liberal Party insiders are sounding the alarm. Key donors have gone silent, and internal leaks suggest panic is setting in. Why? Because the math is simple. If even one more riding flips, the Liberal majority could fall apart. And if that happens, it won't be politics as usual, it'll be a crisis of legitimacy. Because power gained through questionable means is not a true mandate. It raises deeper concerns about the system as a whole. But here's what matters most. You, the voter, still hold the power. You are the watchdog. You are the voice of accountability. You are the reason this investigation even exists. This must not stop until every ballot is accounted for. Every irregularity is investigated and every official involved in wrongdoing is held responsible. The government may want this story to fade. They may hope you lose interest, move on, or accept things as they are. But this time you're not backing down. Not when the foundation of Canadian democracy is at stake. The tide is turning. And what was supposed to be a smooth rise to power for Mark Carney has now become a political firestorm, one that's rattling even his strongest supporters. Inside Liberal circles, the mood has shifted. Emergency meetings are being held, legal teams are being assembled, and quietly, very quietly, even some within the party are beginning to distance themselves now. Even members within the Liberal Party are beginning to speak quietly, cautiously leaking their concerns to the press, not because they've suddenly changed their minds, but because they don't want to be remembered as standing on the wrong side of history when this entire situation unravels, and unravel it will. Because no matter how much spin is pushed, no matter how many procedural errors are claimed, you cannot erase what Canadians have seen. You cannot undo ballots that should never have been counted, and you cannot silence a nation that's demanding to know how its sacred democratic process became compromised. The federal investigation is now in full swing, and legal experts aren't just reviewing the ballots, they're looking at everything. How were candidates vetted? How were voter lists compiled and updated? Why were some ballots found left unattended? And most critically, who gave the green light to call certain ridings for the Liberals before polls even closed in Western Canada? That's more than a misstep. That's a potential breach of democratic procedure. And what's beginning to surface? A growing body of evidence pointing to miscommunication, negligence, and in some cases deliberate manipulation. In the Maritimes, a returning officer allegedly overruled poll workers who had flagged ballot discrepancies. In the GTA, an Elections Canada employee was reportedly caught removing ballots from a bin without authorization, only stopped when a volunteer intervened. And in Quebec, an audio recording has emerged of a Liberal campaign manager claiming